go in and look at it and start getting ideas. Whoa, the lights are going off out there. Anyways,
take two.
How's it going, guys? You know how many times do you redo videos and stuff?
I'm pretty one-shot wonder.
Are you?
Yeah.
I'm not a one-shot wonder.
Yeah.
How's it going, guys? We are here at the Tiny House Jamboree in Arlington, Texas, and I'm here with one of my good buddies, Doug from Off Grid with Doug and Stacy. And how are you liking the Tiny House Jamboree?
I think it's like really cool because you see so many different small living spaces. If you guys don't follow our channel, or maybe you've never seen this crazy looking guy who looks Amish, which I'm not, by the way. We live in a log cabin. It's under 600 square feet that I built in 90 days. But when you come to these kind of things for people that are interested in the movement, it's good to see so many different living spaces back to back to back. So you can really kind of get a feel from small teardrop campers to tiny houses on wheels to like what we're in today.
Which is like a yurt?
Yeah, it's like called the Plenty Sphere, and it's sustainably sourced and made in America. So I think it's a value added thing to come to things like this so you can really get your hands on and see a bunch of the different ways to do it.
Absolutely, and I think one of the main misconceptions that we're going to talk about in this video is that a lot of people, you've seen me build my tiny house from scratch, and you've seen me build it on a trailer and it's on wheels. Now, Doug lives in a tiny house. I don't know what is the classification of tiny house.
Yeah,
for me,
so many. It's like off grid.
Yeah,
you know.
So I wouldn't base it on square footage. I would base it on whether or not the space is used well in the house.
Right.
So you could have maybe 1,000 square foot house, but you have maybe a larger family, but all the space is used well. So Doug lives in like he said, a 600 square foot house that he built himself in 90 days. And we just want to talk about the difference, because maybe you think to yourself, all right, I really want to build a tiny house on wheels. But you have to start to think to yourself, you know, what is going to be happening in the future in my life? Am I going to be traveling around with it? Do I want to create more of like a homestead? What is your ultimate goal with living in a smaller home? So like we have our 200 square foot tiny house, but there's also limitations to that. And it is a small space, whereas Doug lives in a 600 square foot tiny house, but it's on a foundation, so it's different. So based on what you've kind of seen with a lot of the tiny houses on wheels, what are the pros, would you say, of living in a 600 square foot house as opposed to maybe like a 200 square foot house?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you have your things right off that you would think about, which would be like your space to move around, you know, your functionalities, like, you know, cooking areas, living room area, sleeping area, food storage, you know, stuff like that. And I think one of the things for us too was about our footprint, right? So all of our houses totally sustainable. You know, wood is sustainable. As a matter of fact, we don't have any man-made things at all in our log cabin. Like everything is wood and basically wood. Because we have cedar ceilings. We have the wood is white oak on our log cabin area. But I think you know, like it just depends. Like one of the things we talk about on our channel a lot is like aging in place, right? So like what is really good for like you and Hannah now, if you have kids or you know something happens and you got your family grows or whatever, you would have a little more space that you would require. So everything is about like long term for us. So like we're older, our kids are gone, and the 600 square foot works good for us, and we can have people over and stuff like that, you know. But like you built that outside awning thing, like that creates a lot more space. We built an outdoor kitchen, so the inside of our house is, you know, it's functional, but then we really utilize the outside, which is the whole key too, is to be outdoors more. Yeah,
and I think that's an important aspect of living in a smaller home, is obviously being outdoors. So picking a climate that is going to kind of promote outdoor living as opposed to always having to be inside.
Well, you got me there, because you live in the desert in Arizona, so it stays pretty good temperatures. But for us, you know, we're in a Four Seasons area, so we do spend more time in the winter time indoors, you know, working on videos for you guys.
I think one of the main benefits of a smaller home, whether it be 600 square feet or 200 square feet, is that you can build it yourself. It's much easier to build it yourself, as opposed to thinking, I'm going to build a 2,000 square foot or a 3,000 square foot house.
Right.
And one thing that you'll see that we're going to be doing is we're going to be building multiple buildings. So as opposed to thinking I have to build one big house that has everything in it, something that I learned from Karen and Bob, who live in Bisbee, they said just start small. Start with a basic structure, 600, 700 square feet, and then you can always add on. You can always build other buildings, as opposed to thinking you just have to build one ginormous one.
Right.
And that's really important, just because mentally it makes it a lot easier to build a much smaller home as opposed to a much larger one. So definitely one of the pros of building a tiny house on wheels is that you can forego the permit process. You don't have to go to the county or the state or whatever in order to get a permit in order to build it. So that's one pro of building a tiny house on wheels. Another one would be that you can move it around.
Right.
So if you're not exactly sure where you want it, you can move it all across the country if you want. So it's a different kind of mindset, and I see a lot of people that are so interested in tiny house on wheels, but really also look at just building a small home that is on a permanent foundation. But it doesn't have to be 200 square feet. You can go up to 600, 700 square feet. It's not a competition. You can build it really whatever size you want and whatever is going to be comfortable for your lifestyle. I think that's so important.
And here's the beauty of building a log home. I can actually strip my log home down and move it anywhere that I want.
Really?
To. No kidding.
Oh, shit.
So I can actually, it was groundbreaking. Did you guys get that? It's real time. I can actually break that whole cabin down, put it on a fifth wheel trailer, and move it to anywhere in the country that I want. So when you guys are building your tiny houses, just think about all these things. Like the tiny house that we live in is like the original tiny house.
Yeah.
Because the settlers and people that were moving west, they built small structures and then they had a lot of outbuildings. So if you do any studying of like homesteads from the 1800s. We actually did a video about it. We went to Daniel Boone's house in Missouri, and then it's just they structured the whole place after how the homesteads looked in the 1800s. So they would have a main tiny house type building, and then there would be like another outbuilding for like the outdoor kitchen, and then there would be another outdoor building for like smoking meats. Yeah. So there would, like he was saying, there's a bunch of multiple buildings, and then that keeps you outside, it keeps you moving around in different spaces. Like in the summertime, we don't want to heat our house up, so we cook outside a lot. We built an outdoor kitchen and we use the sun oven. Yeah. Like you guys have a sun oven, right? Yeah. So you just have to implement all these different things, so it'll be the best experience for you. I think a lot of people get into this and they think like they're gonna have that same kind of a lifestyle that they had in their bigger house, and then they get like freaked out and burned out or cramped in, and because they're not really utilizing their property in a way that's conducive to moving about and having, like you said, more spaces to go to.
Yeah. So I think it's really important just to focus on and think about where you're going to be going in the future, because a tiny house on wheels is great in that you can move it around and all that.
Right.
It can be an accessory dwelling unit, so you can Airbnb it. It can serve a lot of different purposes as opposed to just the one purpose that maybe you originally thought.
Right.
There's a lot of thinking involved, and you really want to plan it out with your spouse or with your children. There's other YouTube channels like My Little Homestead where they have one main house, and then all the kids they're building their own little kind of bedrooms or
is that the sandbags?
I watched them. Using the earth bags and the sandbags.
Right. And that's another great idea. So like you could have multiple tiny houses on your one property, and then everyone communes together, grows the food together, has their own living space, and it makes it more affordable too, right?
Yeah.
So like one person, if you have an older child, doesn't move off to another area, and then you're like needing help, they're commuting back and forth, they're spending their tax money and everything. Kind of like the Amish, they have like a main house, and then as the children grows, the parents move into a smaller house and the kids take over the bigger house, but they keep the family on the property. And in Missouri, they actually have these things called century farms. So they're farms that have been passed through generation to generation. So after 100 years, you get a plaque like from the state, it says century farm, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the goal like we should be fighting for, is because we're losing a lot of that, where property and things and knowledge, that's a huge one, are passed down from generation to generation. It's been broken up over the last 50 years or so. Yeah.
And then I was just thinking, another benefit of building more smaller structures is that you can build one structure and do it debt free. So you can pay cash for it. As opposed to thinking I have to generate $200,000 or $300,000. You can start with a small main structure, and then as you accrue more money in your life, you can start working on the next one, and then the next one, and then you can do it debt free, and then you're not paying like a ridiculous amount of interest. Because if you look at the mortgage, say on a $250,000 house over the course of 30, 40 years, you're almost paying as much in interest as the cost of the house.
That's right.
You can do some research into that. You might be paying $200,000 in interest. So if you kind of buckle down and make some, I wouldn't say major compromises, but some minor compromises in your life, you can live in a much smaller space, pay cash for it, and then at the end of the day, you're actually gonna have more money.
I mean, you guys are going to live free, right? That's the whole thing. Like this tiny house movement and the homesteader movement and the off-grid movement is just to accept more personal responsibility for what we're doing, and then live debt-free. When you guys are debt-free, you can make decisions like Derek, right? He came to this event today all the way from Arizona to Texas because he's debt-free, and he can make those kind of decisions. So, hopefully through our channel and his channel and other channels you guys are watching on YouTube, you guys can foster that idea and live a more free life, where you're not having to go to some grind job that you can't stand just because you have to make some, $2,000 mortgage payment just because you're trying to keep up with the Joneses.
Yeah. So what I'd recommend, so Doug lives in his house with his wife Stacy. They have no electricity. They have a small generator that they use from time to time. But they don't have any wiring in their house. They're completely on rainwater.
Yeah.
What are some other
toilet?
Yeah. Composting toilet, growing the vast majority. Would you say the vast majority of your own food, or a lot of your own food?
We grow a large portion of it, yeah. So, with gardening guys, I know you watch these videos and everyone's doing so great in their gardens, but gardens are like huge success or huge fails. So, always got to, we're always preserving food. We don't do much canning. We do a lot of fermenting because we believe in eating live food for healthy gut flora. So, if you check out our channel, we're not going to be like the regular kind of canning folks, but yeah, we grow a lot of our food, rainwater catchment. We do eat meat.
Yeah, that's fine.
I know. I just give them a rub. And then, so we just try to be as self-sustainable as we can and keep our carbon footprint really down as low as we can.
So yeah, definitely check out you've got obviously a ton of videos explaining all the systems that they have. And watch them, get some knowledge, and you're going to be much better off just kind of like experiencing, watching other styles of living as well.
Right.
So you look at us, maybe there's one aspect of our lifestyle that you don't really like. Well, you can pick that up from Doug and Stacy. So you don't have to obviously be a cookie cutter from us, but pick these little nuggets from everybody on YouTube.
Did he just say nuggets?
Yeah, nuggets of gold, not chicken nuggets.
We always try to tell you guys when you watch these videos, if you could just leave with one little piece of information that you can tweak and implement on your place, then you're going to be much better off for it.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Doug.
Yeah, it was good to meet you face to face.
We're going to be doing some videos together in the future.
I think he's going to come to the homestead.
I'm a homestead homie, so I want to come and check it out.
That's right.
Awesome, guys. Thanks so much for watching. I'll leave a link to Doug's channel, Doug and Stacy's channels down below, and we'll catch you on the next video. Talk to you soon. Peace! There we go. That was enthusiastic.